It's it's my pleasure to present our following speaker, that is Professor Natalia Diaz Rodriguez. She is currently professor at the University of Granada in Spain, and she was a privileged Marie Curie postdoctoral researcher, and also worked in the Andalusian Research Institute in the Data Science and Computational Intelligence Department. And her current research interests are including deep learning, explainable artificial intelligence, responsible, trustworthy AI, and AI for social good. She has also conducted her research in different top research centers, like in Silicon Valley, in the CERN, Field Research, University of California, Santa Cruz, in NASA, and also in the Institut Polytechnique Paris in Riyadh, among others. The title of her presentation is Connecting the Dots in Trustworthy Artificial Intelligence, from AI Principles, Ethics, and Key Requirements to Responsible AI System and Regulations. So please, Professor Natalia.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. I am professor at the University of Granada and at the Andalusian Research Institute in Data Science and Computational Intelligence, and DASTI. And I will be talking about trustworthy AI, of course, connecting the dots regarding AI principles, ethics, and key requirements to responsible AI systems and regulation, where in this paper that we did some months ago, we end up providing a definition of what responsible AI systems are according to this holistic vision. Okay. First of all, the framework in which all this work happens is the new set of regulation being set up by different continents, as you know, and as previous speakers have been proposing. So perhaps I don't need to go so much into these details. But as you know, the flavor. I mean, the main point is on preserving human rights, as you all know, and above the rest of technological advancement. And in the European landscape, we have two laws giving context to all recent work of this community. As you know, the GDPR and the ethics guidelines for trustworthy AI. As you know, the trustworthy AI should be what are called the three pillars, right? Trustworthy AI should be lawful, respecting applicable laws and regulation, ethical, respecting human values and ethical principles, and also robust, both technically and from the social perspective, right? So, in addition, we have the ethical principles based on fundamental rights, which are respecting human autonomy, prevention of harm, fairness, explainability, and of course, these are all aligned with many manifests and recommendations like UNESCO, or even industrial principles such as, for instance, Telefonica have provided their own, like principles for responsible AI by design in practice, and every company is actually developing their own, right? So it's worth mentioning that although the term explainability is not mentioned a single time in the AI Act, actually the only word explainable is used just one time in a lateral manner. It's probably because of the complexity associated and all remaining work to be done in the field, right? Explainable AI, however, is still included in 28 out of the 32 of the AI principle guides as key aspect to consider, and including AI systems. So this may look as a conundrum, right? And since many wonder actually why a right to explanation of automated decision making does not exist in the GDPR, or did not exist back then in 2017, this is actually explained because GDPR is a right, but it may also be a challenge for explainability, right? If we preserve privacy, perhaps it's not so easy to explain systems. So this was one story of impact that Sandra Wachter, a Turing Institute researcher, was urging for the needs for a right to explanation in the new GDPR. And her team urged the need for individuals to have legally binding right to have automated decisions made about them explained, right? So this helped show how the GDPR will be implemented, and these researchers identified the gaps that the legislation concerning the explanation of algorithmic decisions should have. So, and it was interesting that she also showed months later that meaningful and legally binding explanation could be actually implemented, and this will enable someone to understand a decision and possibly contest it without the need for technical trade secrets information to be disclosed, right? So this work has been cited by the House of Lords and has been providing expert guidance on how these laws should be implemented. Of course, if you know more a bit about the topic, she was talking about counterfactual explanations. These are essentially could take any decision-making process and show what the outcome would have been for an individual if they have had information about the process itself. You only need to give very limited information, right, about what is happening. But this will actually enable someone to understand the decision, to possibly contest it, and to be fair, to prove to be fair, in order to show transparency. Okay, so we will see a bit more about this. What we propose here is what we work hard was having this 4-axis holistic vision of Trustworthy AI with principles for ethical use and development. So this includes a philosophical reflection on AI ethics, a review of regulatory efforts around Trustworthy AI, focus on the European AI Act, an examination of the fundamental pillars and requirements for Trustworthy AI for implementation in practice, from a technical point of view, and a discussion on possible discussion on current debates like the call for pausing AI experiments, the moratorium letters that were some months ago signed by many researchers, or different mind-reading technologies and IP management of AI-generated content. So all these debates were also discussed in this article we worked on, and we also conclude defining these responsible AI systems connecting all aspects of this vision. So if you are interested, I recommend you reading it. As you know, we have the 7 requirements for Trustworthy AI that have been already discussed by previous speakers, so I won't repeat myself. Lying over the 3 pillars of robustness, lawfulness, and ethics. And we have also the 4 levels of risk of the AI Act, the new AI regulation. So the EU regulation in this, the AI Act is the most mature model, and it's a risk-based approach. So it regulates the use of AI, not the technology. And for that, it defines high-risk AI systems. From the base of the pyramid going bottom up, we can see, for example, on the level 4, we find those applications without risk or minimal risk. These are treated in Article 69 of the AI Act and include systems being applied, for instance, in video games, recommendation system, or industrial prognosis. From there up, we can see on the left side of the pyramid the obligations for those levels. So for the level 3, some transparency obligations will be demanded from these systems, and for level 2, there will be obligations of some conformity assessments, because this will be the high risk and AI systems that the AI Act highly regulates. For instance, those that affect social and education approval procedures, medical diagnosis, autonomous systems, or enforcement of the law. And of course, we will have also the level where the risk is unacceptable and they will be forbidden completely, like social scoring, as we saw in Black Mirror episode, or subliminal obscure manipulation and facial recognition. The AI Act lists 8 types of high-risk systems that can be identified with 8 different use cases of scenarios where AI can be applied. And this can be summarized as those systems for biometric identification, those that handle and manage critical infrastructure, AI system for educational purposes, including access to education and as a human right, or those systems to access employment, or those that affect hiring and evaluation of personnel. We also have those systems that regulate access to public services and benefits, such as credit scoring system or system for criminal law enforcement, border control, or those used in the administration of justice and democracy. So these are the 8 kind of big families of systems. Once we have defined the 8 types of high-risk AI system, or HRISE, the Chapter 2 of the AI Act defines which requirements actually should be complied with. We have them here on the right. And these systems basically must be equipped with adequate risk assessment and mitigation systems, high quality data sets feeding the system to minimize risk and discriminatory outcomes, logging of activity to ensure traceability of results, detailed documentation for purpose of systems and for authorities to assess compliance, clear and adequate information to the user, as the Article 13, transparency, and appropriate human oversight measures to minimize risk, and high level of robustness, security, and accuracy. Okay, so a little bit prior to Trustworthy AI, it appeared the related term responsible AI, which until now it had been widely used quite much as a synonym, right? However, the term responsible AI has become obsolete with the rapid advances of AI, and also due to the concept that trustworthy AI is reaching a wider vision, right? So this fact raised the needs of making explicit the similarities and differences between trustworthy and responsible AI, and this is what we did in the paper I'm presenting with the title of this talk. So we defined responsible. We did not define responsible AI, but rather responsible AI systems. So a responsible AI system requires ensuring auditability and accountability during its design, development, and use, according to specifications and the applicable regulation of the domain of practice in which the AI system is to be used. Therefore, responsible AI emphasizes the ethical use of an AI-based system, its auditability, accountability, and liability. So when we refer to responsibility over certain tasks, the person in charge of the task assumes the consequences of his actions to undertake the task, right? Whether the result to be eventually right or wrong. However, when we translate this concept of responsibility to AI-based systems, decisions made by the system in question must be accountable, legally compliant, and ethical. But other requirements for trustworthy AI, such as robustness or sustainability, for instance, may not be relevant for responsibility. Therefore, trustworthy AI is a wider umbrella term over AI products. However, in responsible AI system, we put the stress in the needs for responsibility associated to who is accountable when an error occurs in its use of the AI system. Therefore, responsible AI system must be auditable, which is ex ante. This means having mechanisms to add accountability. This will require validating conformity with respect to vertical or sectorial regulations, to horizontal or AI-wide regulations like the EU AI Act, and specifications and constraints imposed by the application for which it was designed, right? But responsible AI system must also be accountable, which is ex post, let's say after the market deployment, right? This is an ex post process because it is once its compliance with the regulation, guidelines, and specifications imposed by the application for which it was designed have been audited. Therefore, the accountability establishes the liability of decisions derived from the system's output. Okay, once made this distinction, we can see that how responsible AI systems fit within trustworthy AI, but they might not have the same requirements. In the EU context, what this means is that the pre-market use of regulatory sandboxes is to be applied as a test of safe environment to to verify that you won't get fined by the regulation, for instance. There would be huge fines, and also adapting requirements and regulations for Trustworthy AI into a framework for the domain of practice, because it will not be the same applying it in autonomous vehicles than in health, right? And accounting, of course, for all the international standards. Okay, so I don't have so much time left, but I wanted to show just a bit of a very successful or popular survey on explainable AI we did. The title is here, and you can read more if you're interested. So we have been focused on the requirement of explainability. And why explainability is pursued? Where there was a nice introduction before, but you see that different audiences or different profiles may be seeking different purposes of explainability, and the reasons to demand explainable models lie on verifying fair decisions for users, certifying model compliance with legislation, audits, ensuring new functionality, or simply understanding as domain experts or other audiences, right? These are some specific explainable AI goals pursued by the different stakeholders and audiences when using explainable AI techniques, from trustworthiness, causality, and transferability to privacy awareness. Right? We could think as we could think that the different goals could be seen as drivers or means to attain explainable AI. What we propose in this article is also a new definition or nuanced definition, let's say, where we place the audience as key aspect to be considered when explaining an ML model. So given an audience and fixing it, an explainable AI is one that produces details or reasons to make its functioning clear or easy to understand for that audience. Now, we all know the spectrum of interpretability goes from linear regression to deep neural networks, passing by SVM, decision trees, or ensembles where we may trade off the common compromise between interpretability and model accuracy. The relevant area of interest for us is providing explainability as an interface to a given audience that makes the most performant models more interpretable, right? So we will be placed here. In our article, we present also a couple of taxonomies to map the landscape of techniques from all ML models, another taxonomy for deep learning specific models, which are the ones in most need of explainability. We have different local explanations, feature relevance explanations by example, by text, model simplification, or visual explanations. One example of visual explanation, that it's model agnostic, so line can be applied, for instance, in images this way. And thanks to line, we can debug models and realize a model is actually paying attention to the snow rather than to the animal to classify an image as a husky instead of a wolf. Another example of visual explanation accompanied by natural language is here, which I thought it could be interesting given the focus of the ultimate project on hybrid models. Is one area of interest that I've been pursuing. It's the compositional explainable models or part-based neural symbolic models. So on the left, we see examples of subjective explanations based on saliency maps, and on the right, explanations that an expert could give based on attributes or properties. And we can see also valid explanations and invalid ones, such as saying that it's a rabbit because it has a carrot, which is invalid, and a valid explanation with this gray box model we presented with a PhD student of mine, such as saying the model here would produce an expression such as it's a rabbit because it has droopy ears and long fur, and this is more valid and coherent explanation with common sense knowledge. Okay, as there are many other models, methods to explain black boxes based on different taxonomy in deep learning or machine learning. If you are more interested, you can read more in our several articles on explainable AI. We have actually 2 surveys because the field is evolving so fast and so many techniques are appearing all the time. Now, how we can categorize different types of errors when the model is compositional or neural symbolic, which I believe is one of the most promising approaches. So could we go beyond expressing these reports? Like we have incomplete segmentation, but correct prediction, wrong segmentation, but wrong prediction, or wrong segmentation and correct prediction. Here, by the way, we are classifying the style of the facade based on architectural elements. And the elements should be coherent, right, with the class that we are classifying. So when this is not the case, the error can have two different sources, and this is what neural symbolic or gray box XI aims to help with, to have more interpretability over which kind of step or reasoning are we failing or the model is failing. Another idea over this use case is just a use case, but can be applicable to any compositional pipeline where we have first detection of concepts and then classification. It's explainable AI neural symbolic learning, or what we call explainable neural symbolic learning methodology, where we propose a methodology that penalizes explanations not aligned with the expert explanation in form of a knowledge graph. In this case, here we will have the Renaissance, have some porthole or some linter doorway, or like the Muslim style has, for instance, label arc, Hispanic Muslim, or Baroque. So some features may be proper of several styles, right? But the explanation of the expert should be what we expect from the system. And when this does not happen, we propose two concepts. First, a metric to measure the misalignment between explanations of experts and the machine, and a method we call SHAP backprop to correct it. So this method penalizes the loss function when the explanation given by the explainable AI method, SHAP in this case, does not coincide with the one from the expert expressed in a knowledge graph. And this is the methodology we propose, which is kind of a template that could be used with any explainable AI method and any compositional model or XI-informed training procedure, where we have a neural component and a symbolic component that is more aligned with human concepts. Some other projects we have had related on Trustworthy AI was my Marie Curie previous postdoctoral fellowship that was Right for the Right Reasons, Explainable AI, on which I have a PhD student working on still, and Google Research Grant on sign language translation, and also Explainable AI for auditing from Leonardo Grant. We also work on some responsible AI governance assessment with some consultancy, some insurance sector, and as you know, there will be a lot of AI governance assessments needs, because AI Act sanctions may involve up to 30 million euros for companies if they don't comply with the regulation, or 5% of business volume as sanctions. So there is a lot of evangelization work to do still on for responsible AI and ethical AI adoption in companies. We also worked on writing the guidelines for implementing the sandbox and the pilot of the government to implement AI Act for companies, and for those companies that don't have so much legal, let's say, support, so that they can comply doing good practices. And as future research lines, just to end, we know that Explainable AI and Trustworthy AI must facilitate the supervision of systems and must be aligned with the risk management systems requirements to improve the reproducibility, auditing, certification for the different audiences that may be auditing it without expertise, perhaps without technical expertise. We need to establish methods and measures to guarantee the authenticity of content too. The privacy might be sometimes some principle conflicting with others and still cohabiting with explainability and traceability. and maintaining these models trustworthy also during continual learning. If they are learning for life and forever, degradation is going to happen, and we need to still maintain these levels. And finally, personally, I'm very interested in including domain knowledge, neurosymbolic AI, for having, let's say, more explainable by design models that can, the more explainable can always help for trustworthiness. So if you are interested in any of these topics, I'm happy to discuss more offline, and I'll leave you here a list of recent literature for you to check out if you are interested. And thanks a lot for your attention.
Thanks to you, Natalia. We are a bit under schedule, but I think we can make you a quick question. It was raised by Michelle. So did you identify, according to the different audiences, when, for example, with frequency, you have to include them for exchanges?
Sorry, I didn't understand the last part. The different audiences?
You have to include them for exchanges. Is it in the chat? Maybe, I don't know, Michelle, maybe you can extend a bit more the question, because I think it was in a particular moment of the presentation. So
yeah, of course, as often as possible, they will be.
Yeah, the context at least.
We always be. We normally do it much less than.
Yes, you are talking about different audiences, so probably the different rules that you have to include in your process. I think it was regarding explainability. I'm not sure. And we just would like to know, yes, you have identified different kind of audiences, but did you also identify when you have to talk with them, when it is requested that they are be put in the loop to give some feedbacks? So you have a sort of process when they intervene during this, depending on their own audiences, depending on the role that they occupy.
Indeed, from the design, we might be wasting a lot of time, resources, and efforts, and from the design, it doesn't. It's not providing the explanations or the outputs expected by the experts. So we will be wasting a lot of time the longer we take to speak to them.